comrades, with all that we are facing in the public sector at this very moment in time and what is being lined up for us, frankly, it is a scandal that this meeting should even have to take place at all. Because incredibly, we are now being told by the so-called captains of industry that the recession is now over, and they are boasting that the banker's bonus is back. It sounds like something out of Noel Edmonds' Deal or No Deal. Of course, for them, while they rub their hands with glee at £1 million bonuses, they have not a care for the millions that now languish on the dole queue. Predicted 3 million will be unemployed by March. Not a care for them of the thousands of workers who've had their homes repossessed as a result of this recession. And of course, they gleefully took the £50 billion bailout given to them and are saying, in effect, I'm all right, Jack. But what they clearly now do care about is where that money's going to come back from to be repaid. They do care about out of whose pockets it is to come from. And it's not a lie to say now that not a single day goes past without one CBI boss or another not calling and demanding cuts. And of course, every single one of those is now echoed by all the three main parties, be they Labour, Tories or the Liberals. And we're now being offered a choice of whether it's severe cuts to come or savage cuts to come. We're being told, you're lucky you've got a choice. You can have your right leg cut off, or would you prefer your left leg to be cut off? Every single one of them lining up to attack our jobs and conditions. But you didn't have to be Mystic Meg to see what was coming. Because in November last year, Alistair Darling, in announcing the budget, openly said that from 2011 onwards, he was going to cut £47 billion off the public sector. It's now being predicted that 350,000 public sector workers' jobs will be cut. Talk of thousands of teachers, thousands of council workers and thousands of hospital workers. Wholesale privatisation of what's left of the public services is now back on the agenda. And that is Labour's manifesto that they expect to get re-elected on. And add to that, we now have the obscene gamble of many councils now demanding that next year's council taxes are 0% in the hope to get themselves elected. And 0%, by the way, would literally mean tens of thousands of additional jobs in local authorities being attacked. Given that that is the backdrop that we face not in several years but literally in several months' time, our union should be using every penny of its resources, every single full-time for the union, to be engaging and preparing for a war against the employers and a war against the government, no matter what colour is elected come next May. But unfortunately, the reality is, as this case has shown, is that it's not a war in defence of jobs and services that they're preparing, but a war against union activists who dare speak out. At a time, literally, when branches are screaming for activists, when every one of them should be nurtured like gold dust, how can we have a situation where the union literally is prepared to throw on the scrappy decades of trade union experience? And it does pose the question, why on earth at this moment in time would they be doing it? Why have they prepared literally to sacrifice 4 branches in London alone, let alone the other attacks that they've done? But it is no accident. The reality at the tops of our union, many who live a lavish lifestyle, to be quite honest, paid for out of our pockets, frankly have given up the ghost of fighting back. They've given up the idea that there is a different society out there and the prospect of the union playing its role. They have accepted free market capitalism, hook, line and sinker, and all that comes with it. And therefore the rational conclusion for them is not a fight is that literally you have to do the best that you can. Reduce the amount of redundancies. Try to stop the cuts as little as possible. The reality is they reduce themselves to little more than managing decline. They accept, in effect, that literally our highest aspiration is for literally New Labour is all we've got and all that there is. These people who live a lifestyle far removed from our members literally, yes, demand that we recruit, but it's recruitment for money's sake, frankly, to keep them in their positions of power and privilege, not for strengthening our trade unions. And that is why that they have moved, particularly in this recent period, against socialists in this trade union. That those that dare pose an alternative pose a threat to these people. Those that dare reflect the anger and disgust at our members. That after 11 years of a New Labour government, that more of our members now have been forced into the private sector than before New Labour come to office. More of our members now earn less than the union's minimum wage figure than before New Labour came to office. And this is an attack. There's not an accident. It's not a matter of, well, it was just an accidental issue that has happened. This is a planned and conscious attack, as we have now got evidence. I recently received a copy of a transcript and a taped conversation between a senior officer in a region discussing a national officer who's been involved in our case, in which this officer clearly says that he has been told that this national officer intends to remove every Trotskyist and every socialist from the national executive. We have seen socialists expelled from the union, where the union is prepared, frankly, to stoop to depths that you could not imagine. Not enough to take people's union card, they've also destroyed their livelihoods. And in one conversation at the TUC last week of an expelled socialist from the union, who happened to have a partner who worked in a fairly lowly official job in the region, who frankly was bullied by the union itself and bluntly said to her, you either leave him or it's your job, and literally they destroyed his personal relationship as well. We now have, due to frankly the bravery of a full-time official, who has now during the course of the court case unearthed and disclosed information in which in this region, where literally the witch hunt is at its most rabid, led by unelected full-time officials. In May last year, or in April, sorry, last year, of a meeting of all the London officials, a so-called training course, it was described that the second day of the training course turned out to be, literally, with the intent of dealing with, and quote, the problem of Trotskyist activists was indeed a part of the course of what was expected of us. Those are the words that were mouthed by the London Regional Secretary of Unison. A full-time official on £50,000 and plus a year.